The Crocs warriors were slitting alien throats and ripping spines from backs, soaking the dirt with blood. But they had never fought humans before. Captain Zach Reynolds received the distress signal and led his Marines toward Kepler 186F. The human colony was silent when they arrived. Buildings smashed, farms burned, no human survivors. Then plasma bolts rained down as Crocs warriors attacked. Zach's team fought back, bullet casings raining into the dirt, alien blood spraying as they took down several heavily armored Crocs. But the alien weapons were too strong. "Fall back to the ship," Zach ordered. As they blasted away from the ruins of the colony, Zach gripped his rifle tight. The Crocs had made a fatal mistake. They didn't know human vengeance, they didn't know human fury. Zach would gather Earth's forces, he would protect humanity, and the Crocs would regret ever spilling human blood. The dropship touched down on the landing pad with a hiss of hydraulics. Captain Zach Reynolds stepped out, his boots clanking on the metal. He strode into the command center, the images of slaughtered colonists still burning in his mind. The door slid open, and he saluted the figure standing at the far end of the room. "Admiral Ivanov, sir. I have a report on the attack on Kepler 186F. Victor Ivanov turned, his weathered face grim. "At ease, Captain. I've been dreading this day." He tapped a button, and a hologram of the galaxy shimmered to life. Red dots peppered the map. "The Crocs have hit 7 colonies in the last month. Over 10,000 civilians dead. They're coming for Earth next." Zach clenched his fists. "My team and I saw them in action, sir. They're ruthless. We have to stop them." Ivanov nodded. "That's where you come in, Captain Reynolds. I need you to gather intel on these bastards. Find out what makes them tick, how they fight, how they think. We need a weakness to exploit." "Understood, Admiral." Zach paused. "What do we know about them so far?" Ivanov tapped the hologram. Data streamed across the display. "They're a warrior race, live for conquest, glory in battle. They've toppled empires across the galaxy, but for some reason they hate us most of all. Intel suggests they see humanity as their biggest threat." Zach studied the information, his brow furrowed. Details on Croc's culture, military tactics, planetary conquests. The more he read, the more his stomach turned. This was an enemy unlike any humanity had faced before. Ruthless, genocidal, living only for war. He looked up at the Admiral. "This won't be easy, sir. They're not going to go down without a fight." "I know, Captain, but we have no choice. The survival of the human race is at stake." Ivanov zoomed out the hologram. A red line crept across the stars, drawing inexorably closer to the blue marble of Earth. "The Crocs are coming, and they won't stop until every last one of us is dead." Zach saluted. "We won't let that happen, sir. No matter what it takes, we'll find a way to stop them." As he strode from the command center, Zach's mind raced. The weight of his mission pressed down on him. He thought of the colonists ripped apart on Kepler 186F, of the Crocs armada bearing down on Earth. His team would need to work fast, study the enemy, find the chink in their armor. Humanity was counting on them. Failure was not an option. Zach's boots pounded on the metal deck as he marched into the armory. His team was already there, checking weapons and strapping on armor. "Listen up," he barked. "We've got our orders. The Crocs are coming for Earth, and we're the only ones who can stop them. But first we need intel. We need to know what makes these bastards tick." He tapped a button, and a hologram flickered to life, showing a Croc's outpost on a nearby moon. "This is our target. We go in hard and fast, grab any data we can, and get out. No heroics, no risks. We get what we need, and we get out. Understood?" His team nodded, faces grim and determined. They knew the stakes, they knew the price of failure. The dropship screamed through the atmosphere, anti-aircraft fire streaking past the windows. Zach gripped his rifle, adrenaline pumping through his veins. The ship shuddered as it touched down, and the ramp slammed open. "Go, go, go!" Zach roared, charging down the ramp. His team fanned out behind him, weapons at the ready. The outpost was a maze of corridors and chambers. Croc's warriors swarmed to meet them, plasma bolts sizzling through the air. Zack ducked and weaved, his rifle spitting fire. A Crocs warrior loomed up before him, teeth bared in a snarl. Zack didn't hesitate. He put 2 rounds through the alien's skull and kept moving. They fought their way to the command center, leaving a trail of Crocs bodies in their wake. Zack kicked down the door and stormed inside. A Crocs commander spun to face him, reaching for a weapon. Zack was faster. He lunged forward, slamming the butt of his rifle into the Crocs' face. The alien went down hard. "Tie him up," Zack ordered, "and get me into these computers." His team went to work, restraining the unconscious Crocs and hacking into the outpost systems. Data streamed across the screens, a trove of intelligence on the Crocs' plans and capabilities. But it was what they found next that made Zack's blood run cold. Schematics for a massive dreadnought, bristling with weapons. A ship designed for one purpose, the annihilation of entire worlds. "The Worldbreaker," Zack breathed. "They're going to use this to destroy Earth." He turned to his team. "We have to find a way to stop this thing, whatever it takes." They fought their way back to the dropship, dragging the captured Crocs commander with them. As they blasted off from the outpost, Zack's mind raced. They had the intel they needed. Now, they had to use it. But the Crocs were relentless. They pursued Zack's team across the stars, determined to recapture their commander and crush the humans who dared to defy them. Zack and his Marines fought battle after desperate battle, always staying one step ahead, always searching for a way to stop the Worldbreaker. In a bold gambit, they launched an all-out assault on a Crocs fleet. Zack led the charge, his rifle blazing, his battle cry echoing across the comms. They carved a path of destruction through the Crocs ships, buying precious time for Earth's defenses to mobilize. But Zack knew it was only a temporary reprieve. The Worldbreaker was still out there, drawing inexorably closer to Earth, and the Crocs would never stop until humanity was nothing more than a memory. As he watched the wreckage of the Crocs fleet drift past the view screen, Zack clenched his jaw in grim determination. One way or another, he would find a way to stop the Worldbreaker. He would save his people. Or he would die trying. Zack stormed into the lab, his boots squeaking on the polished floor. Dr. Elena Sokolov looked up from her workbench, her brow furrowed. "Captain Reynolds, I've been expecting you." Zack nodded, his jaw tight. "Doctor, I need your help. We're running out of time." Elena pushed aside the schematics she'd been studying. "The Crocs are getting closer, aren't they?" "They're already at the outer perimeter. We've got days, maybe hours, before they reach Earth." Zack braced his hands on the workbench, his knuckles white. "We need a way to stop them. A weakness, a vulnerability, something we can exploit." Elena tapped a few keys on her console. A hologram of the Worldbreaker shimmered to life, rotating slowly. "I've been studying the data you brought back. The Worldbreaker is heavily shielded and armed to the teeth. A frontal assault would be suicide." Zack's eyes narrowed. "What about from the inside?" Elena zoomed in on the hologram. A glowing red dot pulsed at the heart of the ship. "The Worldbreaker's power core. If we could get a team inside, plant a bomb." She shook her head. "But the security is airtight. Biometric scanners, DNA locks. We'd need a Crocs to get past them." Zack straightened. "What about the commander we captured? Could we use his DNA?" Elena hesitated. "Possibly, but it's risky. We'd have to surgically implant his biometric data into one of our own. And even then, there's no guarantee it would work." Zack's expression hardened. "It's a chance we have to take. I'll do it." Helena's eyes widened. "Captain, the odds of survival are—" "I know the risks," Zack cut her off. "But someone has to do this, and I'm the best chance we've got." He met Eleanor's gaze, his eyes burning with determination. "Prep the commander for surgery. I'll assemble my team." The next few hours passed in a blur. Zack briefed his Marines on the plan, watching the grim resolve settle over their faces. They knew the stakes. They knew the price of failure. As the surgery began, Zack paced outside the medical bay, He thought of his family, his friends, everyone he was fighting to protect. He knew he might not come back from this mission, but if he could stop the Crocs, if he could save Earth, it would be worth the sacrifice. The door hissed open and Eleanor emerged, her face drawn. It's done. The commander's DNA is now yours. Zack nodded, his jaw tight. Then there's no time to waste. As he strode towards the hangar bay, alarms began to blare throughout the base. Red lights flashed, bathing everything in a hellish glow. Alert! A mechanical voice echoed over the loudspeakers. Croc's forces have breached Earth's outer perimeter. All units to battle stations. Zack broke into a run, his team falling into step behind him. They burst into the hangar, racing towards their waiting dropship. Overhead, Earth's defense fleet was already engaging the Crocs, explosions blooming against the blackness of space. Zack leaped into the dropship, slamming his fist against the door controls. As the ship lifted off, he took one last look at Earth, at the blue-green marble he called home. Then he turned to his team, his expression hardening into a mask of determination. This is it. We all know what's at stake. The Crocs think they can take our home. They think they can wipe us out. His voice rose to a battle cry. Let's show them what happens when you mess with humanity. The dropship streaked towards the Crocs' fleet, weaving and dodging through the maelstrom of the battle raging around them. Plasma bolts sizzled past the view screens, ships exploding into clouds of debris. Zack gripped the edge of his seat, his eyes locked on their target growing larger ahead of them. The Worldbreaker loomed against the stars, a behemoth of steel and destruction. He turned to the pilot. Get us in close. We'll breach the hull and fight our way to the power core. As the dropship skimmed along the Worldbreaker's surface, Zack felt a flicker of doubt. They were only a handful of Marines against an entire dreadnought of Croc's warriors. The odds seemed impossible. But then he remembered the slaughtered colonists on Kepler 186F. He remembered the desperate battles, the worlds the Crocs had already destroyed. His resolve hardened. They had to succeed. Failure was not an option. "Breaching positions!" he barked, unclipping his harness. His team surged to their feet around him, faces grim and weapons ready. The dropship shuddered, clamps locking onto the Worldbreaker's hull. The hatch blew open, Atmo hissing into the void. Zack leaped across the gap, mag boots clanging against the alien metal. Then they were in, storming through the breach into enemy territory. Croc's warriors swarmed to meet them, a tide of teeth and claws and lashing tails. Plasma bolts sizzled through the air, the deck shuddering under the impact of grenades. Zack fought at the head of his team, rifle spitting death, blade flashing in vicious arcs. His movements were fluid, merciless, fueled by a cold rage. These creatures had slaughtered his people. They had spilled human blood, and they would pay the price. They battled through the Worldbreaker's corridors, leaving a trail of Croc's corpses in their wake. Alarms shrieked and lights flashed as the dreadnought went to full alert. Crocs poured from every hatch and passageway, a never-ending onslaught. Zack's team was a blur of motion, moving with deadly precision. They watched each other's backs, fighting as a cohesive unit forged in the crucible of countless battles. No Crocs could stand against their fury. But more always came, an inexhaustible supply of the enemy. For every warrior they cut down, 3 more took their place. Slowly, inevitably, Zack's team was pushed back, yielding ground inch by blood-soaked inch. As he slammed a fresh magazine into his rifle, Zack took stock of his people. They were battered and bleeding, exhausted, running low on ammo. But still they fought on, with the desperate courage of those who knew they were humanity's last hope. "Power cores up ahead," Zack roared over the chaos, consulting the schematic on his HUD. "One last push, give it everything you've got." His heart pounded in his ears as Zack crept through the bowels of the Worldbreaker, the bomb clutched tight to his chest. The corridors were eerily silent, the only sound the faint hum of the ship's engines and the clank of his boots on the metal deck. He consulted the schematic on his HUD, navigating the twisting passageways towards the dreadnought's core. As he rounded a corner, he froze. Ahead, the corridor opened up into a massive chamber, pulsing with malevolent red light. At its center, suspended in a web of crackling energy, was the Worldbreaker's power core. Zack smiled grimly. Jackpot. He hurried forward, fingers flying over the bomb's keypad as he armed the device. He was just about to plant it when a guttural roar echoed through the chamber. He spun, rifle snapping up, to see a squad of Crocs warriors charging towards him, plasma blades flickering to life. Zack cursed, abandoning the bomb and bringing his rifle to bear. He squeezed the trigger, sending a burst of fire into the lead Crocs. The alien stumbled, smoke pouring from its chest, but the others kept coming, hissing and snarling. They were on him in seconds, blades slashing. Zack ducked and weaved, rifle bucking in his hands, as he fired point-blank into the mass of alien flesh. A plasma blade sizzled past his head, close enough to singe his hair. He lashed out with the butt of his rifle, feeling the satisfying crunch of breaking bone. But there were too many of them, and they were too fast, too strong. A blow sent him stumbling back, stars exploding across his vision. He shook his head, trying to clear it, but the Crocs pressed their advantage. Claws raked across his armor, tearing into the polymer. Zack gritted his teeth, refusing to give ground. He fought like a man possessed, rifle and fists and feet a blur of motion. He could feel his strength waning, his blows growing weaker, but still he battled on. The bomb had to be planted. The Worldbreaker had to be destroyed. Everything depended on it. With a roar of defiance, he surged forward, smashing his rifle into a Croc's skull with a sickening crunch. He scooped up the bomb from where it had fallen, fingers flying over the keypad. The timer blinked to life, numbers flashing in a relentless countdown. The Crocs came at him again, a tide of claws and teeth and fury. Zack met them head-on, bomb clutched to his chest. He could feel the seconds ticking away, each one an eternity. He just had to hold them off a little longer. With a final, desperate effort, he hurled the bomb into the pulsing heart of the power core. Then the Crocs were on him, blades stabbing, claws tearing. Pain exploded through him as a plasma blade punched through his armor, searing into his flesh. The world went white, then red, then a searing, blinding gold. The chamber shook with the force of the explosion, the deck bucking and heaving beneath his feet. Crocs warriors were hurled in every direction like rag dolls, smashed against walls and incinerated in the blast. Zack felt himself lifted off his feet, flung through the air like a leaf in a hurricane. He crashed to the deck, every bone in his body screaming in protest. Smoke filled his lungs, seared his eyes. Somewhere, distantly, he could hear the wail of alarms, the shuddering groan of the Worldbreaker's hull. Darkness crept in at the edges of his vision as he lay there, blood pooling beneath him. He had done it. He had destroyed the Worldbreaker. Earth was safe. As unconsciousness claimed him, he thought he saw a bright light through the smoke and the chaos growing closer. A ship, he realized dimly. A rescue. Then the darkness took him and he knew no more. Zack floated in a haze of pain and confusion, mind drifting untethered. Fragmented images flashed through the fog. The Worldbreaker's core chamber, pulsing with malevolent light. Crocs warriors, hissing and snarling as they charged. The bomb clutched tight to his chest as he fought. And then, heat and light and noise, searing through him like the heart of a star. Distantly, as if from underwater, he heard voices. Severe burns and lacerations, fractured ribs, possible spinal injury. Have to operate immediately if... Get him to the infirmary now, move! Hands gripped him, lifting him, carrying him. He felt the sting of a needle in his arm, the cool rush of drugs in his veins. The pain receded, replaced by a numbing chill. He forced his eyes open, fighting to focus through the haze. White walls gleaming metal. The beep and hum of medical equipment. Infirmary. He was on a ship. Faces swam into view above him. Max, his second in command, eyes shadowed with worry. Dr. Sokolov, her face a grim mask as she barked orders to her medical team. "Zack, can you hear me?" Max's voice taut with concern. He tried to answer, but his throat wouldn't cooperate. He managed a nod, the small motion sending a fresh wave of agony crashing through him. "You did it, Captain." Dr. Sokolov, her tone softening for a moment. "The Worldbreaker is destroyed. The Croc's fleet is in disarray. Earth is safe." Safe? The word echoed in his mind as the drugs pulled him back down into the dark. Earth was safe. He had done his duty. But even as unconsciousness claimed him once more, Zack knew their fight was far from over. The Crocs would regroup. They would come again, hungering for revenge, and he would be there to meet them, to stand against the tide, no matter the cost. For he was human, and he would never stop fighting for his home. You have reached the end of the story. If you enjoyed this story and want to support me, please leave a like and subscribe to my channel. And for every comment that says, "I liked the story," I will heart every single one of them. Thank you for your time.